Hello everyone, this is EGWwrites, the author and creator and voice of Lady Eilean. This audiobook video is a companion piece to the novel Lady Eilean, which is available to read for free at wattpad.com. You can find this book and a handful of others on my profile. To view that, please visit wattpad.com/EGWwrites. Two quick housekeeping notes before we get started. Number one, this book will contain adult content, so listener discretion is advised. Please use headphones or listen privately. Number two, I live in New York City, and as much as possible, will try to edit around city sounds like sirens, car alarms, shouting, traffic, and etc. But sometimes there is no avoiding it. My apartment is a little too small for a recording booth. Thank you for your patience. Now, grab a cup of coffee or tea, snuggle up, and let's read. Lady Eilean, Chapter 60. Time passed in a blur following the standing. And without a blink, a week passed. It was the eve of my wedding. The gathering would come to a close in 2 days with the fealty ceremony, and then, married and off to the mainlands, I would embark on a life I could not envision. A constant current of nerves ratcheted up day by day. My hands tingled and my mind was in constant jumble. After a long, strange day, I was glad to return to my rooms and shut the door on the world. Everyone had been off kilter, distracted and acting strangely. Alex had left after breakfast, rushing off to attend to some urgent matter in a nearby village, paying no heed when I pointed out that everyone from the village was camped at Stormway for the gathering. I had been so consumed with preparing documents for the delegation that his excuses did not ring false to me until it was too late. When I came across my brothers in the hall or at meals, they winked at me and laughed. I was the butt of some private joke they didn't deign to explain. I caught Wallace and Enos sneaking around with boxes full of long taper candles and yards of ribbon, but they refused to tell me why they needed such items. They laughed behind their hands and scuttled off before I could question them further. Even Callum had been on edge, tense and jumpy, borderline disgruntled. All of his typical ease and charm vanished, replaced by snapping and annoyance. Claiming a stomach issue, he excused himself from the delegation around lunchtime and had not returned. Sitting on a bench, I leaned out of the window and watched the night. It was clear and cool, almost chilly. Bright stars twinkled in a dome of inky dark. Had I believed in such things, I would have attributed everyone's strangeness to the moon. It hung round and full in the sky. A peach-pink hue washed over its pockmarked surface, and it wore the surrounding constellations like diamond adornments. It was beautiful, the scene arresting. It felt as if time had stopped. I was seldom alone with myself. I preferred activity and camaraderie, but I enjoyed this glimpse of serenity. The moment was short-lived. A knock sounded on the door. Opening it, I faced Callum. He was beaming, transformed from his earlier moodiness. He wore ceremonial robes of a blue-black brocade with silver thread that danced in the torchlight, a mastery of sewing that transformed a coat into the night sky. "You're dressed up," I said, stepping back and allowing him entrance. He stayed put in the hall. "I'm here to deliver this." He handed me a parcel wrapped in green paper. I took the package. It was soft and pliable in my hands. Fabric. "What is it?" Callum lowered his voice and leaned in. "I can't tell you. It's a surprise." He winked and grabbed the door handle, pulling it shut. "Put that on and meet me back out here." Confused, I frowned at the door. "What are you up to?" "Get dressed," came his muffled reply. I ripped open the package. A length of slippery, gauzy fabric slid over my hands like water. The material was airy, the color of fresh cream. Holding it up, I realized it was a dress in the new, relaxed peasant style that was sweeping the mainland. The seamstresses had been in a tizzy over it. A wide, open neck with yards of pleated fabric that fell loose and flowing around the body. Sheer sleeves with more gathering to create a soft, pillowing shape. A simple forest green sash to go around the waist. Across the cuffs, waist, train, and bodice were embroidered wildflowers in muted autumnal colors. I recognized the work at once. It was Wallace's signature style. I knew what I held, knew what surprise awaited me. Covering my mouth, I blinked back tears. Turning back to the door, I wrenched it open. Callum looked at me with raised brows. "You're not dressed," he drawled, unmoved by my emotion. I sprung on him, wrapped my arms around his neck. "Thank you," I breathed. "Thank you." He laughed and patted my back. Yes, you're welcome. "Now hurry! Tardy brides make everyone nervous." I kissed him on the cheek and retreated, shedding the clothes I wore. I scrubbed my face and sponged myself down, preening myself as quickly as possible. Combing out my hair, I opted to leave it down, the curls wild and unbound around my face. When I slipped the dress over my head, it was the first time in my life a gown ever felt right. No tight shoulders, no stiff bodices. It skimmed the shape of my body weightlessly. It demanded no additional adornment. No jewels or added finery could add to its attractiveness. It was perfectly simplistic. I pulled a finely spun shawl of ochre wool out of my wardrobe to protect against the night chill. With a quick appraisal of myself in the mirror, eyes bright, cheeks pink, smile wide, I rejoined Callum in the hall. He started, pushing off the wall, blinking. "That, I think, is the best you have ever looked, dear lady." I flushed at his frank admiration. "How did you do it?" I asked, looking down at the embroidery. "The flowers alone would have taken months." "I've had Wallace working on it since last winter. I figured you needed a wedding dress eventually." "It's beautiful, Callum." "So are you, but don't make me compliment you so much. I'm shy, you know." Laughing, I took his arm. "I can only imagine what you have planned for the ceremony." Callum gave me a rogue wink. "Oh, I exceeded my own expectations, which, I'll remind you, are notoriously high." I squeezed his arm and let him lead me into the night. We moved through the castle as if in a dream. My sight was hazy, the torchlight and candles shining too brightly. The air was hushed. The normal hustle and bustle of the castle stilled. The great hall was dormant. The guests of the gathering gifted a night off from drinking and revelry. They had to store up their strength for the debauchery of a wedding, after all. I had not considered an alternative, but as I walked to a smaller, private ceremony, I was grateful for Callum and his foresight. We exited the castle and walked across dark and dewy grass until we arrived at a clearing half a mile from the gates. Rimmed by ancient oak trees, the center was open to the night sky. The full moon shone down from the center as if positioned just so by Callum's hand. Hundreds of candles and glass and filigree lanterns hung from branches. They lined an aisle strewn with fall flowers. Ribbons and sheer fabric hung from the trees and swept across the expanse, creating a festive brightness in the dark. They shivered on the wind with the delicate rhapsody. It was a veritable fairy wonderland. "Callum," I breathed, taking it all in. "How did you do this?" "I live to serve you," he said with a twinkle in his black eyes. I gripped his hands in mine, wondering when I had last seen the haunted ghosts of the war in those dark depths. It had been a long time. Callum's happiness gave me hope for the future, a promise that my father and brothers, all of the men so afflicted, might one day recover. "I know you're not one for churches," he said with a sly wink, "or tradition, or pageantry, formality, or anything that makes life attractive, but if you would permit me, it would be an honor to give you away." As if on cue, Alex emerged from the shadows and took his place at the end of the petal-strewn path. "This is real," I marveled, the words coming out of my mouth unbidden. "Very real," Callum whispered. A shimmering curtain of tears obscured my view and made the candlelight sparkle, the moon shine with more luster. Callum handed me a handkerchief and I dabbed my eyes, taking a moment to collect myself. I looked at Alex. He was brilliant and perfect, waiting with a dazed smile under an archway woven of ferns and hanging vines. Cascading golden blossoms spilled out from the arch, framing the spot where I would make my best friend my husband. Resplendent in a fine wool coat the same hue as my shawl, McLeod yellow. Alex had taken my colors as his own. Selfless, patient, the only person I had ever wanted. The only man I ever dreamed of accepting. "I'm ready," I said, nodding my head. It was impossible to look away from Alex. Callum whistled, and I was speechless as Bess, Wallace, Angus, Enos, and my brothers converged on the space, each carrying a golden candelabra and dressed in outfits that matched the subtle grandeur of the forest at night. Behind them trailed the inhabitants of Stormway, the servants, field hands, seamstresses, and cooks. Hundreds of people melting out of the forest and into the light. "Your family," Callum said with a wave of his hand. My chin trembled. I laughed as too many emotions crashed into me at once. I cried and grinned and wobbled and sniffled simultaneously. "Just one last article of business, and I will lead you to your beloved." I nodded, expecting to sign some kind of certificate, formalizing the proceedings. I thought I owed it to myself one last time. Callum's lips twisted into a knowing grin. "Now, before I lose you forever, are you sure you wouldn't like to become Lady McKieran instead?" He very nearly got the question out before doubling over with laughter. "Your face!" He pointed and chuckled as he bent over, supporting himself by the knees. "No," I said, beaming. Now behave yourself before you ruin my wedding." Callum took back his handkerchief and wiped the tears of mirth from his cheeks. "I cannot marry you, Callum," I said, heart full, "but I am so very glad to have you here. You are a true and noble friend. Your companionship and faith in me has been one of the richest, most rewarding experiences of my life." "Does she have cold feet?" Rupert called out. "I came here for a wedding. Let's get on with it." Laughter chased away the lingering chill in the air. Callum raised his voice and addressed the attendees. "To think I gave every laird a gold coin at your standing to prevent competing bids, and now your brother thinks I've planned a sham wedding." Callum clucked his tongue a few times, a performer at home in front of an audience. "Any more abuses, and I'm going to call in my debt." "Send the bill to my father." I waved away his concerns. "Soon I'll just be a matron with no concern outside of knitting baby blankets." "We'll see about that. There's fealty yet to be sworn." The gathered attendees all nodded with a solemnity that made my mouth turn dry. "Well then," I said, doing my best to recover from the profound shift that seemed to destabilize my sense of balance. "Let's get on with it." Callum escorted me down the aisle, my feet, heart, and soul lighter with every step. When we reached the archway where Alex stood, Callum kissed me twice on each cheek. "Good luck, and best wishes, Eilean," he whispered. "Be happy." I walked the final steps toward Alex alone, smiling as if I had just invented the gesture. My heart pounded loud enough to drown out everything and everyone but him. Alex's eyes were brimming with sparkling, unshed tears. As I reached for him, there was a sense of rightness, the feeling of coming home. "You are the most beautiful thing I have ever seen," I said, taking his hands. "Pinch me and tell me this isn't a dream," he whispered. "You're a vision." I lightly pinched the top of his wrist. "It's all real." Forgoing tradition, he kissed me then, pulling me close and granting me a caress so full of passion my head spun. Chuckling, he spoke against my lips. I couldn't help myself. "I don't mind," I said, breathless. Looking around, I observed, "Where's the priest?" Alex ducked his head. "I thought, maybe, we could do a mainland wedding. You don't need a priest, just witnesses." I bit my lip. "That sounds perfect." Alex nodded at Bess, who stepped forward. She placed our hands atop each other's and wrapped them with a wide red velvet ribbon. The familiar scrape of Alex's calluses and the warm weight of his hands on mine gave me stability. My mind was astoundingly clear, serene in a way I had never felt. No worry or concern nagged at the back of my mind. No task needed to be done, no problem needed resolved. Elmsmere, Stormway, the people, my parents, the charter, all of it vanished. "Bride and groom," Bess said, reading off a piece of parchment. Her voice was steady, though her cheeks were wet. "Look into the eyes of your beloved. Will you honor and respect one another and seek never to break that honor?" Staring at each other, we vowed it. "Will you share each other's pain and seek to ease it? Will you share burdens and allow your spirits to expand and strengthen in this union?" When had Alex ever failed me there? Never. "Will you look for the brightness in life and share in your laughter and joy?" Chuckling, we agreed. "The binding is made. Your lives are knit. Now your spirits are joined in love and trust. Above you are the stars, below you the earth. Like the radiance of the heavens, your love will be a constant source of light. As the earth is a solid foundation under your feet, so will your lives and love support you." There was a pause. Bess folded her paper, the parchment crinkling in the night's quiet. An owl hooted. Crickets sang. "As witnessed by those in attendance, I proclaim you married," Bess said, her voice thick. "Now you can kiss me," I teased, beaming at Alex. His answering embrace was one of such sweetness and promise that I considered swooning. Cheers went up into the night. Angus sang a wedding march, his lustrous voice filling the clearing. Soon everyone joined in. Alex and I were caught up in a massive embrace of the clan we had created. John and Walter pulled casks of wine from under their coats and passed them around. "Drink! Drink!" Robert cheered, pressing a skein into my hands. "We have barrels of it stashed in the trees." "And music!" Enos clapped her hands and loosed a loud, piercing whistle. From the depths of the forest came refreshments, tables, benches, and wine. In a matter of a moment, a true and raucous wedding party raged under the light of the moon. Alex threaded his fingers through mine. "We did it." Tears sparkled on his cheeks. "We did." He pulled me into his arms. "I love you," I said, never knowing truer words. The festivities went on until well after sunup. Drunk and exhausted, we stumbled to sleep after a hearty breakfast in the main hall. Mother glowered at the state of us. Those who had missed the celebration wondered at our bleariness. Alex followed me to my rooms, laughing in drunken idiocy and pulling various items of our clothes off after we shut the door. We collapsed on the bed and the world spun around us. Too much fun for me, I huffed, burrowing my head under a pillow. I felt Alex lay down beside me, heard him kick off his boots. We should get married more often. It's a hell of a party, he said. I laughed but didn't move. Blindly, I groped for his hand, slapping the bed in fruitless search. He took pity on me and weaved his fingers through mine. The air around my face was hot and sticky. Dreading the daylight, I pulled the pillow off of my head. Pull those curtains closed, I said, pointing toward the window. Not even married a day and you're ordering me around, Alex grumbled, stumbling out of bed and walking in an erratic zigzag to the windows. He pulled the heavy drapes closed. My head stopped hurting quite so much in the darkness. I always order you around. You like it, I teased. Yes, but I was not previously obliged to obey, he said as he flopped back down beside me. I snorted and rolled down my stockings. The cool air was blissful on my legs. We should get some sleep, Alex said through a yawn, snuggling up beside me. I wonder how many brides are hungover from their first wedding at their next. Alex laughed, nuzzling into my hair. Do we have to do the one tonight? Yes, I said, smoothing back his hair. I want to see my mother's face when I puke all over the priest. Snickering, we fell into a deep, dizzying sleep. Thank you so much for listening today. I hope you enjoyed the story. Subscribe to this channel and click the notification bell to be alerted when new chapters are updated. You can also follow me on Wattpad or Twitter at EGWwrites, where I will also share updates. As always, thank you for being a part of Eilean's journey. We are very glad that you're here. Until next time.